Dun 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 dun! Hello, it's Tip here, and today's topic is autism spectrum disorder meltdown versus burnout. So this was a topic request from a follower, thank you for sending it in. And I'm going to do my best to try and explain the difference between the two. So I've noticed the terms are being used quite interchangeably in a lot of articles, and from my perspective they're actually quite different. So I'm going to try and explain how. So starting with burnout. So autism spectrum disorder burnout is kind of like a tally system. So if you imagine someone on the spectrum faces a lot of triggers in day-to-day living, so be it lights, textures, tastes, emotional triggers, energy, so many different things. But if you're dealing with that day to day and it's, every day you get worn down a little bit more, you get aggravated a little bit more, your limits are being pushed every day, and you're not taking time to recuperate either because you don't have the coping strategies in place, or you don't have the, you're not able to take that time out to actually regain your energy. If that happens too many times over and over and over again, eventually you burn out, because what happens is you're constantly being pushed, you're constantly being triggered, your energy is constantly being utilized, but your fuel tank actually eventually runs out. You've hit your limit, you've hit overwhelm, you've got nothing left, fuel tank is empty, and you're being forced to rest and to recuperate. Now, when you actually reach that limit, you can become quite emotional or aggressive or just overtired. And when you go into that period of recuperation, there are many changes that can occur with your body. You can literally sleep all day. Your appetite can change. Your mood can change. Your general outlook on life. There's so many things that can actually affect. And you need to take a good amount of time to actually refuel your body in order to get back on track again. So that to me is a burnout episode. It comes with a lot more warning. So you, as I said, it's like a tally system. One thing gets you, then the next thing, then the next thing, then the next thing, all little triggers that add up eventually to hitting your limit and needing to take that time out, or that quiet time, or that sleep time. And recuperation can take anywhere from days to, or hours to days to months. It can take quite an extensive time in order for you to get yourself back on top. On the other hand, meltdown is a lot more intense. So you have very little warning. It can be often, when you go into a supermarket and there's fluorescent lights, there's a lot of noise, there's people banging into you, the ground starts moving, everything sounds like a big blur, and eventually you hit that limit very quickly. And often what happens when you hit that limit, you can become quite verbal, you can start stimming, some people shake, some people scream. It's often quite intense, it can be quite explosive, and often for the person involved, somewhat embarrassing, and there's some guilt that follows that. So, unlike the tally system, as I said, a lot less warning, a lot more intense when it happens, a lot more explosive, but at the same time you still need that time to recuperate afterwards. Now, one thing I will point out, especially with meltdown, is that the people around you, their first instinct is generally to reach out and touch you or hug you or look after you or speak to you. But most people who are having, I know with myself, like when you're in a meltdown episode, the last thing you want is someone to touch you, especially hugging or very close contact to your face, because at that point your skin is so sensitive and your ears are so sensitive and your eyes are so sensitive that if anyone touches you, it actually exacerbates your reaction. So the best thing you can do is actually follow their lead, and if they look like they're trying to push people away or get rid of you, you need to respect them and give them that space in order to have their meltdown, have their episode, and calm down before you try and touch them. As with burnout, meltdowns can be equally as exhausting, so you need to give them a lot of time to recuperate afterwards. That could be time on their own, time doing their favourite things, special interests, all that kind of thing, in order to get themselves back on track. It can take a matter of minutes, hours, days, or even more to recuperate from a meltdown, depending on how intense it was and how much energy it took out of them. I also want to use this video just to point out how tiring day-to-day life can be for someone on the spectrum, because that's why we reach these episodes of either burnout or meltdown. You know, day-to-day things like just very small tasks can suck the energy right out of us. So anything from just getting up in the morning, going to school or going to work, even driving a car, walking around the block, going supermarket shopping, all of these things have so much sensory input involved in them, or so much emotion or energy involved, that they can actually exhaust us to quite an extensive degree. And that's just day-to-day things without anything on top of that. So, you know, things like moving house or relationships, or if routine gets completely changed, it can be even more extreme than that. So anyway, I hope that I have explained will help to explain the difference between the two. So one's like a tally system, a lot more gradual, a lot more warning, and not as intense when it reaches the limit, but needs a lot of time to recuperate. The other one, not as much warning, quite explosive and intense at the time, still needs that time to recuperate afterwards. The better you know yourself, or the better you know the people around you, the more you can start to learn coping strategies about how to work around your triggers, and also you start to learn your own limits, or the limits of the people around you, and small signs that they're about to reach those limits, which can make it a lot more easier to cope when they actually occur. Yeah, I hope that's kind of been a good enough outline. I'm going to finish it there. Feel free to ask me any more questions, or send me any emails or requests. I hope you've had a good day. Over and out. See you later.